4 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're now watching Q News. Let's start our bulletin with the latest developments in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Israeli warplanes have continued bombing various areas across Lebanon, intensifying their strikes on Beirut's southern suburb. The Lebanese media reported that the suburb experienced approximately 12 airstrikes during the night. An Israeli strike early this morning has killed at least 3 journalists and injured several others while they were sleeping in guest houses designated for media workers in Hasbaya, southern Lebanon. The strikes marked the deadliest day for media workers in a year of hostilities between Israeli occupation forces and Hezbollah. 5 journalists had been killed in previous Israeli strikes in Lebanon during the conflict. Lebanese Information Minister Ziad Makari has condemned the Israeli strike on journalists in Hasbaya as a war crime. Makari accused Israel of deliberately targeting journalists, leading to the deaths of 3 media personnel after surveillance and tracking. Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati has condemned the recent Israeli assault targeting journalists and reporters in Hasbaya, South Lebanon. Mikati described the attack as a chapter in the ongoing war crimes committed by Israel without international deterrence or response. He also stated that he has directed the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Immigrants to add this latest crime to the documented files of Israeli crimes that will be submitted to the appropriate international authorities. Egypt's media giant United Media Services has extended its wishes for the safety of Al Qahira News crew in Lebanon after a cameraman was injured in an Israeli airstrike on the journalist's residence in Hasbaya, southern Lebanon. The media company affirmed its ongoing support for Al Qahira News teams in Lebanon, Palestine, and conflict zones worldwide, ensuring comprehensive and credible coverage. In a tragic escalation, journalists in Hasbaya were targeted by an Israeli airstrike, resulting in multiple casualties. This deliberate attack raises urgent concerns about press freedom and humanitarian law violations.
In a tragic escalation of ongoing Israeli aggression, journalists who bravely documented and exposed its atrocities to the world are now its victims. Israel has launched a direct airstrike targeting the residence of journalists in the town of Hasbaya in southern Lebanon's Nabtaea Governorate. The strike has left Al Qahira News photographer injured and has claimed the lives of other journalists, with several more wounded. Eyewitnesses reported that the strike directly hit the building with precision, resulting in the deaths of at least 3 journalists, according to the preliminary toll provided by Lebanon's civil defense. Al Qahira News correspondent has reported that an Israeli aircraft fired a missile directly at the building, causing significant casualties among journalists and extensive damage to the structure. Red Cross teams on the ground have managed to recover the bodies of the deceased and transport the injured to nearby hospitals for urgent medical care. This attack on journalists' quarters was not accidental. The building is widely recognized as a residence for media personnel, and the area has seen no civilian evacuation for months, underscoring the deliberate nature of this assault. The violence did not end here. Prior to this incident, Israeli forces attacked UNIFIL personnel with internationally banned white phosphorus and targeted Lebanese army units, extending their assaults to Lebanese medical teams and healthcare workers. These aggressive actions illustrate a shocking and unprecedented escalation by Israel, flagrantly disregarding international humanitarian protocols and laws. The breadth of these violations marks Israel's name in a grievous history of unforgivable crimes.
And for more analysis, we now move to Mark in our newsroom. To you, Mark.
Thank you, Hella. Now, to discuss this further, this escalation in Lebanon, we are joined by Ali Hamy, a military and strategic analyst. Welcome to Q News. Thanks for joining us. Can I ask you, what is your assessment of the targeting of journalists' residences in southern Lebanon? What might the factors be behind this type of attack? And do you see it as a deliberate attack on journalism?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me with you. I would like to start first that Israel is attacking the journalism and media in general, like if it is like from the doctrine of their thought. Now we are talking about, in addition to 124 journalists and reporters and correspondents from in Gaza were killed by the Israeli forces. Now we are talking about starting again killing journalists in South Lebanon where they were sleeping in their residence. This might not only talking about person to person, soldier to soldier in the battlefield. Israel is trying to attack all the infrastructures. We are talking about hospitals, schools, church, mosques, universities, college, all. And they did it most, the Israeli did up to now, the most they can do by killing, destroying, and trying to show us their certified Holocaust against the Palestinian and Lebanese.
Okay, and can you tell us perhaps, how can these military strikes by Israeli forces in Lebanon be explained? And what are the possible strategic objectives behind these kind of operations?
As I said, they are trying to kill the cause by attacking behind the line of a battlefield. They are trying to do something that never any army did before. I'm talking about the Israelis are taking their people as a human shield, and they are accusing Lebanese people and the resistance in Lebanon as taking a human shield. Now we saw yesterday and the day before that so many soldiers were killed in South Lebanon from their side. I'm talking about the Israeli entity, and it was spotted by the Lebanese journalists and the media, international media. So they were, yesterday they tried night to kill the cameras, to destroy the cameras and kill all what they can, detect any casualties that happen inside their army. They are in for sure, they are in a dilemma. They are in a big failure. They are trying to do what's elusive for them in South Lebanon, and they would like to also make us or the world blind for what's going on.
Yeah, to stop people seeing what is happening on the ground. What are the factors that might contribute to the escalation of the current conflict into perhaps a full-scale war? Do you think that there are interested parties that are seeking to achieve this within Israel?
I think there is like some kind of, let's say, differences in opinion between the army, the intelligence, and the politicians in Israel. And I think the army wants to stop the war against Lebanon because it's like over their power, and they saw that. We are talking about like in 21 days over, as the Israelis claim, over 1,000 between, I'm talking casualties between dead soldiers and injured, wounded. And they are talking about 32 Merkava 4 up to now, 3 big machine, and we are talking about 3 to 4 drones, plus personal carrier, armored personal carriers. They didn't say how many. And so it's a big casualty in 21 days up in front. And up to now, they couldn't, like, they are starting at first, as I always said, They said it's a land war. We are going to invade Lebanon. Then they said it's an incursion. Now they are talking about infiltration. So they are degrading their, let's say, their targets are going down. Besides, we are talking about, in the other side, we are talking about the resistance is going gradually ascending their power.
And in the wider situation, what are the potential security implications of the conflict's escalation on the situation in Lebanon? And are there fears of more violence to come, internal tensions as a result of this escalation?
You are talking about in or outside Lebanon?
Both within Lebanon and also the situation in the wider region.
I think if the Israelis don't stop now this and commit their ceasefire, as what Biden said, like on last May, I think we are going into expanding war, full-scale war, as we say, and it will be like a conventional war, might go to, let's say, connecting front between, I'm talking about Ukraine, Russia, to the war in the Middle East, because we know that the main goal of Israel is to dominate the area by, and they thought by killing the spiritual leader and the top leaders in Hezbollah and Hamas, this will stop. No, it looks like they are very recovering fast. They are recovering very fast, and they are still in power in this battlefield, and they are, let's say, they are offending instead of defense in a defense position. They are now in offense position. I'm talking about the resistance. So in case Israel doesn't stop, I'm talking about specifically the enemy Prime Minister Netanyahu. If he doesn't stop at this point, and he's like making some kind of cohesion area, like between his existence and the entity existence, it means that he's talking about, if I die or if I lose, Israel will die and Israel will lose. And I think this will not be tolerated anymore by the inside Israelis. Now, maybe if the war will continue, I think the war, as I said, it will not only be provisional, or I'm talking about like, it will not stop between Israel and Lebanon. It might go beyond Lebanon to Iran, and then we will see a big war in the region. This will not, the Israelis cannot tolerate, I'm talking about 1 year, about 30 months, 1 year and 1 month up to now. This is the longest that Israelis could go into war for such long period of time. I don't think they can tolerate it anymore. I'm talking about inside. I'm talking about economic-wise, military-wise, strategic-wise, and all what they had in mind. I think they are disappearing. They are vanishing now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Ali Hamy, a military and strategic analyst. Thank you very much for your insights at this very worrying time, at a time of escalation. Back to you, Hala.
Thank you very much, Mark. The WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom announced that the conflict in Lebanon has forced over 100 health facilities, approximately 1/3 of the country's total, to shut down. The WHO urged an end to attacks on healthcare facilities in Lebanon, citing Israel's ongoing airstrikes over the past 3 weeks. WHO's representative in Lebanon, Abdel Nasser Abu Bakr, has reported that medical facilities in southern Lebanon have been severely damaged. He added that 10 hospitals are now unable to provide essential medical services, stressing the urgent need for a ceasefire and international support to restore healthcare services. President of the Doctors of the World, Jean-François Corti, has decried the lack of discussion about the humanitarian crisis in northern Gaza during Thursday's international conference to raise aid for Lebanon. Corti said that he was left afraid after there was no mention or discussion of the horrific realities that civilians face in Gaza, where water and food have become scarce due to Israel's devastating campaign in the Strip. He also added that there needs to be more pressure on Israel's government to limit civilian casualties in Lebanon and Gaza, and that European countries should reassess their weapons transactions with Israel.
They are dying every day under bombing, and we are very concerned about the fact there is no food, no water.
Meanwhile, UN peacekeeping forces in Lebanon, UNIFIL, have warned of the deteriorating situation along the border due to Israeli military operations. UNIFIL stated that there are no signs of de-escalation in the clashes between Israeli occupation forces and Hezbollah. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has reported that government shelters in Lebanon are now overcrowded. The agency added that around 430,000 people have fled from Lebanon to Syria, noting that Lebanese civilians are crossing into towns still suffering from a 13-year-long war. The Israeli occupation forces have reported intercepting one of 5 rockets launched from Lebanon towards Haifa Bay in northern Israel. While one rocket was intercepted, the remaining missiles landed in open areas. Israeli media confirmed that one rocket fell in Kiryat Yam near Haifa and sirens sounded in western Galilee. The Disaster Risk Management of Beirut Governorate has announced relocating displaced people living in tents along Beirut's coastal corniche to a shelter facility in the Karnatina area, housing more than 400 individuals. The statement also highlighted that a second phase to accommodate the remaining displaced individuals from the corniche will be completed in the coming days. The relocation is part of an ongoing effort, with the new shelter being prepared according to a pre-compiled database of families living in public spaces. Lebanon's national news agency has announced the closure of the Juzia crossing on the Lebanese-Syrian border after an Israeli airstrike targeted the area. The strike halted the movement of vehicles and trucks. Earlier this month, an Israeli airstrike hit near the main border crossing point for people fleeing the escalating bombing and ground campaign in Lebanon for neighboring Syria, destroying a section of the road and effectively cutting off vehicle access. And now we move to the latest developments in Gaza. Israeli occupation forces have carried out an airstrike on a residential complex in the Jabalia refugee camp, resulting in the murder and injury of approximately 150 civilians. Israeli airstrikes targeted about 10 homes in Jabalia, northern Gaza, where a siege began 20 days ago. And Israeli occupation airstrikes have killed 38 people in Gaza, including women and children. Local sources reported that the Israeli occupation forces targeted a residential home in Al-Manara area of Khan Yunis. The deaths reported by Gaza health officials were the latest in the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis, where people have in recent days lined up for bread outside the city's only bakery in operation. Israeli occupation forces have raided the Kamal Adwan hospital in Beit Lahia in northern Gaza and ordered patients to move to the main courtyard. More than 150 patients and staff are trapped at the Kamal Adwan hospital in Beit Lahia as the Israeli occupation forces besieged the medical facility. The raid came a day after Israeli tanks shelled the compound of the hospital, one of the few remaining functioning medical facilities in the north of the enclave, as the Israeli siege entered its third week. Moving on to economic news, global shares had a mixed performance as investors await the outcome of the U.S. elections next week. The United States, the futures for the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average both went up by 0.1%. In Europe, Germany's DAX dropped 0.1%, France's CAC 40 lost 0.4%, and Britain's FTSE 100 edged 0.1% lower. In Asia, Tokyo's Nikkei 225 index lost 0.6%, Hong Kong's Hang Seng added 0.6%, Shanghai Composite gained 0.4%, and South Korea's Kospi edged up 0.1%. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here's what we have been covering. An Israeli strike kills at least 3 journalists and injures several others in southern Lebanon. The World Health Organization announces the conflict in Lebanon has forced over 100 health facilities to shut down. And Israeli occupation airstrikes killed 38 people in Gaza, including women and children. And this concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow us, Q News, on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at Q News EG to stay informed. For real-time updates, connect with us on the UMS digital platform. Watch it. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.